Greetings 101 students. I hope this teacher chat finds you well. We are starting week 13 of our semester, and so things are coming up fast. This week you are writing your draft. You are getting ready to kind of put words to all your ideas that you've been reading and thinking in regards to your Inquiry 3 research argument paper. I show you this quick little meme just because I think it's poignant when we're thinking about writing argument, but it could also be poignant when we're thinking about our current political and national culture when we're talking to people who may not have the same viewpoints as us, or may just have a lot of ideas that are different from ours. So as you can see on the screen, the original meme had two different people, and they're standing on opposite sides of what looks like a number. And of course, the guy on the left says, "This looks like a 6," and the guy on the right says, "This looks like a 9." And under that, the original meme said, "Just because you are right does not mean I am wrong." And I think that this is oftentimes a relativist argument that's put out when we are talking to people with whom we disagree. We want to kind of put the idea out there that there's oftentimes multiple ways to be right, and oftentimes that can be true, right? Let's say if you're really arguing over the best pizza out there, or things that are kind of more benign. But I want to kind of make it clear that arguments can be right or wrong. Not everything is relative, and often that depends on context. And so that's why I share with you this perspective meme, because the red corrections here in the meme are also really interesting and I think are very relevant to writing arguments as well. So it says, one of these people is wrong. Someone painted a 6 or a 9. They need to back up and orient themselves, see if there are other numbers to align with. Maybe there's a driveway or a building to face, or they can ask someone who actually knows. And so what this paragraph is reminding us is that in making arguments, we are taking into effect context. So in your Inquiry 3, you are asked to write an argument paper to someone who you think needs to read or not read Marjane Satrapi's Persepolis. And this could be something that feels very benign. I know one of you suggested that you were going to write, I think, to a nephew who's maybe like 12 or 13. And at first you might think like, oh, my nephew's really nice. Of course he's going to find this interesting. But I would really, make it clear that when you're writing the argument, you want to really make it a strong argument. And that might not necessarily mean that your nephew has a right or wrong opinion, but you want to really make it so that they understand the urgency and the context here. And I think that's what this first paragraph is going towards, to suggest that when you write an argument, you're really needing to paint a context, right, for someone to understand this information in. And to do so, you might need an introduction that includes a hook that has some kind of real life moment. Why do we need to read Persepolis right now? You guys are writing after the 2020 election. Maybe you have opinions that align with how you see the effect of the election on our country, and maybe you think it does or does not need to be read in light of that. You can take it whichever way you want, but I want to make sure you guys are thinking about context here. You are writing to an audience person after the 2020 election. Does that weigh into your ideas at all? Again, that's just a suggestion. And the second paragraph here at the bottom says, people having an uninformed opinion about something they don't understand and proclaiming their opinion as being equally valid as fact is what is ruining the world. No one wants to do any research. They just want to be right. And you can kind of already hear in this bottom paragraph that the author of the red writing has a little bone to pick, right? I'm not necessarily saying that I think the world is ruined, but I do think it helps us think about what research does versus an uninformed opinion. And what I'm getting at here is the so what of the assignment. Even though I know that research papers cause students a lot of stress, and sometimes we think that research is something that we're never going to use, or feels like so different than maybe than the kind of academic writing we're used to, let me just assure you that I'm not expecting perfect research papers, but I do really think that the value of exposing students to academic types of research gives you all a leg up, an advantage, a way of thinking about how can you also participate and engage with different research, different voices, different pieces of information, and have informed opinions that people will listen to and respect. I think that ethos, that credibility, is something that takes practice. And it's not something that's going to come across perfect the first or second time you write a research paper, but as you're exposed to research, the further you go on in your academic careers, I really do hope that you become more familiar with and more adept at engaging with research and writing your own opinions about research, so that you're participating in making knowledge around our world. So again, I start with this meme just to kind of ground us in what's going on this week, which is writing your argument. Let me pull up this week's module in Canvas. Here you will see some familiar things, but there's a couple things missing. Number one, there's no research pairs assignment. I really appreciate everyone who wrote me to tell me that you couldn't see the assignment for this past week. I'm not sure what was going on. I think I finally made it public, and so that you guys could see it in full, every single group. But even as people are responding to them, it really comes through very wonky on my end. So I think I'm just going to give up on the research pairs. Hopefully you guys were able to make a little bit of contact with somebody, but I appreciate your patience with that. So there is no research pairs assignment this week, and there is no discussion post assignment this week. We will have one more in the semester, but this week I want us to really just focus on understanding what Essay 3 can look like and drafting it. So 13.2, Student Lounge, come be social if you like. 13.3 is going to have examples of of Inquiry 3. There's going to be two different examples. One that's an example of classical argumentation, and one that's an example of Rogerian argumentation. These are the two different examples and argument structures that I give you in the Guide to Academic Research. So please go back to that document, that 10-page document, and look for how to structure arguments. And in that, you're going to see the outlines for these two types of papers. You're going to write one or the other. To be honest, most students pick classical because it's the most familiar. It's a thesis-driven essay, and you've all done that already in Inquiry number 2. So if you want to do that again, that is fine. But I want you to just know that you have some options, and that's kind of some examples. Keep in mind that these are not examples exactly of your same prompt. Every semester I kind of tweak prompts and make them up a little differently just to keep it interesting for me. So I don't have an exact essay fulfilling this prompt for you. You kind of have to kind of make it stretch to what I'm asking us to do specifically about Persepolis. After you kind of go over the essay examples, just know that I point you to extra examples from our InfoWord textbook. I didn't want to make you guys read too many things this week because I really want the focus to be on drafting, but just keep in mind that there are extra examples in there, and I point you to those if you want. The second thing I want you to read more carefully is how to use quotes. And so I'm pointing us back to the They Say, I Say book, which I gave you a link to, I believe, in week 10 or 11, module 10 or 11. If you just Google They Say, I Say PDF, you're going to find a copy of it online. That's basically what I urge you towards. But nonetheless, I give you the chapter here in PDF form if it's helpful. And this is a short chapter, 5 pages, about quoting. Why do we use quotes and how to use them? And again, They Say, I Say gives you templates, which are really helpful for introducing quotes, giving quotes, and explaining them. So please read through that closely. And then I give you a handout that I've typed up that kind of summarizes wrong ways to use quotes and correct ways to use quotes. Please look at them carefully and just kind of make sure you understand what I'm asking for. At the end of that, I summarize the templates from They Say, I Say, because it's nice to have these kind of all written out in one spot. I use them on my own too when I get kind of stuck writing the same thing over and over. Now, to go back to the modules, how to use quotes also includes a bonus. This is a PowerPoint by our tutor, Andrew Powers, that's really clever and cute about quote sandwiches. So I would definitely take a look at that. We have our very last quiz this week, quiz 13. It's worth only 5 points. It's due by Friday. And it is on the 2 readings for this week, both examples as well as the They Say, I Say reading. So be sure you do those things early on in the week. Just get them in your brain. Then I have provided a video about how to structure arguments. So going back to the Guide to Academic Research, there's the page in there about how to structure arguments. Then connecting that to the essay examples, both for classical and Rogerian, I would come to watch this how to structure arguments before drafting to make sure that you can kind of think through how you organize your information. I make it about a silly topic, what is better, cats or dogs? And I kind of brainstorm in a document, how would I organize my argument to this? What kind of information would I put in? Stuff like that. I hope it's helpful to you guys. Let me know if you have any questions about it. Lastly, what you're going to do is you're going to upload your rough draft. Please note that I've extended the deadline for this. So Inquiry Rough Draft is due anytime between November 15th through 22nd. Again, if you do not want to work over Thanksgiving break or you have stuff to do, get it in early. I'm happy to give you feedback early on and you can turn it in very quickly. However, some of you might need more time or want more time as you continue maybe looking more carefully at your research, organizing your thoughts, and writing your draft. I will give you until the 22nd, which is the beginning of the week of Thanksgiving week, to get me a draft. Now that doesn't mean you don't do next week's module. You do. Next week's module is going to give you tips on revision and editing. But it gives you some extra time to get the draft to me so that I can get you feedback. The goal would be to get at least 2 or 3 pages of a draft down so that you can get the most feedback you can from me. I would really encourage you to get it to me sooner than not. If everyone gets me a draft on the 22nd, it's going to be hard for me to get it to you, everyone back really quickly. You do not have to turn in inquiry number 3 until November 29th, which is the Sunday before, I guess after Thanksgiving or before we come back for our last 2 weeks of class. And so I want you to just keep in mind that you have an extended almost 2 weeks amount of time to get me a rough draft. But a rough draft must come in order for me to grade the final draft. And we'll emphasize this again. While a rough draft is not graded, you must turn it in for me to grade your final draft. And I say this because oftentimes students get really nervous during a research paper or any paper, and the temptation is there to maybe plagiarize, to cheat, have someone else write it in some capacity. But I want to help you through that process. This class is making you try out process methods, essentially. So get me what you can, and I will give you feedback on that. This is what you have some flexibility with, but read carefully and make sure that you understand what I'm asking for and what the parameters are. Don't just assume, oh, I have time, I'll leave more things till the end. That's basically what this week is all about. I will be giving you guys feedback on your proposals quickly because I think that's where I can kind of give you the most useful feedback. Then I will grade the annotated bibliographies after that. And so expect those to kind of come in a little bit at a time. But as you'll note, this week is really just about making sure you understand what the essay is, asking for, making sure that you email me or Andrew for help, and start writing. Just get that really ugly first draft down and keep writing. A little bit at a time really does go a long way. Thanks again, guys, for listening. Hope you have a great week.